Something wild is happening in modern dating, and almost nobody wants to admit it. For the first time, average men are looking at women who approach them and saying, no thanks. And for some women who've spent years being the ones doing the rejecting, that tiny word is setting off massive emotional explosions. Think about the last decade. Men were expected to chase, approach, pay, persist, and eat rejection like breakfast. Ghosting, being ignored, being laughed at by a group of friends, that was just part of being a man. Over time, a lot of men developed thick skin and a long memory. Now those same men have quietly changed the rules. They've started applying the standards that used to be used on them. She's not my type. I'm focused on my goals. I want someone more selective, more peaceful, more stable. And suddenly, some women are getting a taste of something men have always known. Rejection stings. You see it everywhere. A woman approaches a guy at the bar, the gym, or on an app, fully expecting an automatic yes. He's polite, calm, and firm. I'm not interested. Instead of shrugging it off the way men have had to do for years, she spirals. Do you know who I am? You think you're too good for me? You must be gay. It's not just about ego. For some, their entire identity has been built on guaranteed male attention. Free dinners, constant DMs, backup options. Take that away, and it's not just a bruise to the pride, it feels like their whole sense of worth is under attack. Meanwhile, men are doing something radically simple, walking away. No scene, no argument, no trying to fix her feelings. Just, I'm allowed to have boundaries too. That's the real shift. Not that all women are crazy because they're not. It's that a certain style of entitlement, the belief that being a woman automatically makes you the prize, is colliding with a new reality. Men have options, preferences, and the power to say no. And the ones who adapt on both sides will do just fine. The ones who explode at rejection instead of learning from it, they're the ones writing, "Where have all the good men gone?" while the good men are simply choosing elsewhere. Modern dating just hit a plot twist nobody prepared for. For the first time, regular men, not celebrities, not millionaires, just normal guys, are looking at women who approach them and calmly saying, "No, I'm good." And the reactions? Nuclear. For years, the script was simple. Men chase, women choose. Men risk embarrassment, women sit back and evaluate. A guy could get rejected 100 times in a year and still be told, "Just keep trying, king." Meanwhile, some women floated through their 20s without hearing a single direct no. Their rejection tolerance was never built because they never needed it. But everything changed when men stopped playing their old role. See, constant rejection does something to you. You either break or you get stronger. A lot of men used to approach anyone who showed the slightest interest. Pretty face, curvy body, she smiled once. Boom, he's invested. He'd tolerate disrespect, flakiness, bare minimum effort because he was just grateful for attention. Years of that started to wake men up. They improved their money, their body, their mindset. They saw how some women treated them as disposable while expecting top-tier treatment in return. And at some point, a switch flipped. I don't have to say yes just because she's attractive. That's where the explosion started. Imagine a woman who spent her whole life as the one doing the rejecting. She's used to friend-zoning guys, ghosting them, laughing with her friends about creepy or awkward approaches. In her world, she's the prize, and men are contestants on a reality show. Now, fast forward to today. She walks up to a man she assumes will be grateful for her attention, and he shuts it down with a calm, "No thanks." To her, that's not just a rejection, that's a glitch in the universe. Suddenly, she's demanding explanations. Why? I'm educated, I have a career, I look good. You should be lucky I even spoke to you. What she doesn't realize is that men have quietly updated their standards. Pretty is no longer a golden ticket. Men are asking, is she peaceful or dramatic? Entitled or appreciative? Honest or manipulative? A partner or a project? And when the answer is project, men are walking away before they get dragged into chaos. That's when the fireworks start. Some women go straight to shaming. You're intimidated. You're insecure. You couldn't handle a real woman. No, he just doesn't want to finance your ego journey. This is the core of the new dynamic. Men aren't angry. They're done. They're not staging protests. They're not writing essays attacking women. They're just quietly opting out of bad deals. And because they're not screaming about it, some women didn't notice the shift until they felt it personally. Part one of this story is simple. Men spent years being forged in the fire of rejection. Some women are now touching that same fire for the first time. And instead of building resilience, they're exploding. Part two. The meltdown era begins. The real shockwave in modern dating isn't that men are rejecting women. It's how little emotion men show when they do it. For decades, rejection was a public sport at men's expense. A guy nervously walked up to a woman, stumbled over his words, and the response was often brutal. Eye rolls, laughter, mocking him with her friends, or a condescending, "Aw, that's cute, but no." Men learned early, rejection is part of life. But women? Many never had to develop that muscle at all. So when they finally stepped into the approaching role, even slightly, the emotional infrastructure simply wasn't there. And when men applied the exact same standards women used on them, that's when we hit meltdown mode. Picture this. A woman approaches a guy at a cafe, confident because she's used to being praised just for existing. She gives him her number. He smiles and says, "Thanks, but I'm not looking for anything right now." Instant detonation. "What do you mean you're not looking? Look at me. Are you serious right now?" She's stunned not because he rejected her, but because it never occurred to her that a man could. The deeper issue? Many women have been conditioned to believe male interest is automatic and guaranteed. Men wanting them was the baseline of reality. So when a man says no, it's not a simple interaction. It feels like the ground cracking beneath their feet. This is where modern men have flipped the script completely, because now men aren't just rejecting women based on attraction. They're rejecting based on behavior. Men finally started asking questions like, does she bring peace or drama? Is she accountable? Or does she blame everyone else? Does she think her presence alone is the prize? Is she looking for a partner or a wallet? Does she have a past that makes her a liability? Does she even like men? Or does she just want validation from them? Women who never had to self-reflect suddenly find themselves under the same scrutiny they used on men for years. And the reaction ranges from confusion to rage. A woman can demand a man be 6 feet 3 inches, fit, financially stable, confident, funny, emotionally mature, ambitious, protective, masculine, loyal, and single. But if a man says, "I'm looking for someone feminine, kind, and in good shape," that's misogyny. The double standard is being exposed in real time, and men are no longer arguing about it. They're disengaging from it. That's what makes this shift so powerful. Women aren't used to men who simply walk away. No yelling, no insults, no begging for attention. Just a calm refusal and silence. To some women, that silence is louder than any insult. It feels like losing a privilege they didn't know they had. Part two is the era of entitlement colliding with indifference. And nothing creates bigger explosions than a woman who realizes men aren't obligated to want her. Part three, when reality hits back. Here's where the story gets even more intense. As men continue to pull back, something unexpected is happening. Women are starting to face the real consequences of the dating market for the first time, and it's hitting harder than anyone predicted. For years, many women operated under the assumption that men were an unlimited resource. If one man didn't give her attention, 10 more would. If she rejected a good guy at 25, there'd be a better one waiting at 30. If she played games, tested boundaries, or wasted a man's time, she believed there would always be backup options. But now, the backups are gone. The attention pipeline dried up. The men she ignored improved and vanished. And when these same women go back to the dating world expecting the old rules, they crash headfirst into reality. You can see it in online dating. Women who used to get hundreds of matches are suddenly getting silence. Their profiles get no responses. Or worse, short, bored messages from men who clearly aren't investing. These women go to TikTok crying that dating is impossible now, unaware that men have been living in that exact reality for decades. What changed? Simple. Men leveled up while women assumed they didn't have to. Men hit the gym, built careers, worked on emotional discipline, learned boundaries, and stopped tolerating disrespect. Meanwhile, some women believed their youth and beauty alone were enough to sustain long-term value. So when a high-quality man rejects them today, it's not rejection, it's a mirror being held up. A mirror many don't want to look into. This is where the explosions start turning into desperation. A woman approaching 30 or 35 suddenly realizes the men she rejected in her early 20s are now dating women younger, sweeter, and more cooperative. She sees her once mid-friend get married while she remains single despite doing everything right. She hears biological clock alarms louder than any motivational podcast, and instead of self-reflection, many go straight to blame. Men are intimidated. Men are immature. Men can't handle a strong woman. No, men simply have options now, and they're choosing women who offer peace instead of chaos. The funniest part? These same women used to say, "I don't chase." Now they have to, and they hate it. Approaching men requires vulnerability, confidence, communication, and rejection tolerance, skills they never built. So when they do take the risk and get turned down, the emotional shock is overwhelming. Meanwhile, men are chilling. A man rejects a woman and goes on with his day. A woman gets rejected and starts questioning her entire identity. Part 3 is where the comfort zone collapses. Some women realize too late that attention isn't the same as value, beauty isn't the same as character, and entitlement isn't the same as compatibility. The market they once dominated now demands something they never prepared for: accountability, humility, and personal growth. And those who refuse to evolve, they're left angry at men, angry at the world, and angry at the truth. Today's men don't need them. They have to earn them. Part 4. The collapse of old power. The most dramatic phase of this shift is happening right now. The collapse of the old female dating power structure. For decades, many women operated with a kind of quiet confidence, some might call it entitlement, built on one fundamental belief: men will always want me. Even average women assumed unlimited options because male attention was everywhere. Compliments, stares, DMs, orbiters, thirsty comments, constant reinforcement that they were desirable simply by existing. But here's the twist. Men finally realized attention is a resource, and they stopped giving it away for free. At first, women thought men were bluffing. A few "where have all the good men gone?" articles popped up. Some women called men emotionally unavailable, weak, or afraid of commitment. But the reality was more straightforward. Men weren't running away, they were leveling up and filtering more aggressively than ever before. That's when the panic began. You see it everywhere now. A woman posts about a guy who didn't chase her, didn't text back, or declined a second date even though she thought she did everything right. She expected him to be grateful. She expected him to impress her. She expected him to compete. Instead, he left quietly without a fight. That silence is destroying the old power dynamic. Women who used to get attention for just being attractive now face men who want effort, kindness, cooperation, loyalty, and emotional maturity. Qualities they never had to develop because the world told them their beauty was enough. A harsh truth is surfacing. Male desire was never the same as male commitment. When men were thirsty, women thought it meant they were valuable. Now that men are selective, women are realizing how fragile that illusion was. This is producing two very different reactions. Reaction 1: growth. Some women adapt. They self-reflect, take accountability, learn relationship skills, drop the entitlement, and become genuinely better partners. These women thrive in the new environment. Reaction 2: explosion. Others do the opposite. They double down on old tactics: shaming, guilt-tripping, insulting, demanding. But none of it works anymore. Men don't respond to emotional manipulation the way they used to. They simply leave. And that's the part that burns the most. Not the rejection, but the inability to control the narrative anymore. It's why you now see videos of women screaming, "Men are trash," "Men can't handle real women," or "Men are the problem." They're expressing the frustration of losing power they didn't even realize they had. Because here's the uncomfortable reality many are facing. You can't demand traditional treatment while offering modern effort. You can't expect loyalty while providing chaos. You can't call yourself a prize while acting like a burden. This collapse isn't about men versus women. It's about outdated roles versus modern expectations. Part 4 is where the old dating economy falls apart, where beauty alone isn't enough, where entitlement gets exposed, and where men's newfound discipline changes everything. The world shifted, but some women refused to move with it, and now they're watching the power they once took for granted disappear right in front of them. Part 5: The Rise of Male Boundaries. By the time we reach this stage of the shift, something powerful becomes impossible to ignore. Men finally learned the two words that changed the entire dating landscape: no thanks. Not yelled, not argued, not justified, just a calm, emotionless no thanks. And that subtle refusal has done more damage to the old dating system than any red pill podcast or trending TikTok rant ever could. For years, male boundaries were treated like jokes. A man who said he didn't want to date a single mom was shamed. A man who didn't want to pay on the first date was cheap. A man who didn't want to tolerate disrespect was insecure. A man who wanted loyalty and modesty was controlling. A man who had standards was misogynistic. Women could have preferences. Men could only have responsibilities. But then men realized something. They don't owe anyone access to their time, money, attention, or commitment, not unless it's earned. This mindset shift didn't come from anger. It came from exhaustion. Years of being treated as disposable finally pushed men to build self-respect the same way they built their physical strength, careers, and social independence. And once men gained that internal clarity, the external world reacted violently. When a man rejects a woman today, it's not rejection, it's rebellion. It rejects the entire social script that told women their desire alone was enough. It challenges the narrative that men should be grateful for any female attention. It denies the belief that men are default pursuers and women are default prizes. Men's boundaries are doing what society never dared to, calling out hypocrisy. You see it in real time. A woman demands a man make six figures while she works part-time. No thanks. A woman expects traditional chivalry while offering modern independence. No thanks. A woman wants commitment while living like she's single. No thanks. A woman who brings drama, chaos, or trauma but expects a high-value man? No thanks. Each calm refusal chips away at an outdated worldview, and those cracks are where the explosions begin. Because beneath many of these outbursts is a deeper fear. If men don't need them, who are they? Some women built their identity around guaranteed male desire. They counted on men being predictable, emotional, and easily manipulated. They relied on men being desperate enough to overlook red flags. They assumed men's standards didn't matter. Now those assumptions are collapsing. Men aren't angry, they're indifferent. They aren't loud, they're quiet. They aren't chasing, they're choosing. They aren't begging, they're evaluating. And nothing terrifies certain women more than a man who is no longer controlled by approval-seeking behavior. This era marks the rise of male boundaries, and boundaries are kryptonite to entitlement. A boundary means a woman can't weaponize guilt, shame, or sexuality. A boundary means a man knows his worth. A boundary means emotional manipulation has no effect. Part 5 is the turning point where men's quiet no becomes louder than any rant. It's where the balance finally shifts, not through force, but through self-respect. And for women who relied on male weakness, this is the moment their world starts to collapse. Part 6, the breakdown of validation economics. This is where everything truly unravels for the modern dating system. The collapse of the validation economy, the invisible marketplace where female attention was the currency and male validation was the reward. For years, the dynamic was simple. Women offered the possibility of intimacy, companionship, or romance. In exchange, men offered attention, compliments, effort, time, and emotional investment, even before anything was earned. Most men didn't realize they were participating in a system where attention flowed upward and benefits flowed downward. But once men noticed the imbalance, Once they stopped giving free validation, the entire structure started to shake. Think about how many women built confidence not on self-worth, but on a constant stream of male validation. Every like on Instagram, every DM saying you're gorgeous, every thirsty comment, every guy willing to hang around as an option, every man willing to chase despite minimal reciprocation. This became their emotional fuel, not self-esteem, external esteem. Then something unprecedented happened. Men simply unplugged. They stopped simping, stopped chasing, stopped complimenting strangers online, stopped throwing attention at women who gave nothing back, stopped entertaining women with no intention of building anything real. And when that validation pipeline dried up, the psychological shock was seismic. Suddenly, some women weren't getting 100 compliments a day. They were getting 0. Their posts stopped going viral, their dating apps went silent, their orbiters vanished. To someone who never had to rely on internal self-worth, this wasn't just uncomfortable, it was identity-shattering. And here's the part that hurts most. Male attention was never an endless resource. It was an illusion created by male thirst. Once that thirst disappeared, so did the illusion. This meltdown is happening everywhere. Women who used to treat men like NPCs are now desperate to be seen. Women who bragged about never messaging first are now double texting men who won't reply. Women who rejected good men in their 20s are furious that those same men now have better options in their 30s. Women who relied on being the prettiest in the room are competing with younger, nicer, more cooperative women. The economy shifted, the supply dropped, and the demand is no longer guaranteed. For decades, women controlled the social marketplace through scarcity, scarcity of intimacy, scarcity of attention, scarcity of availability. They determined the rules. Men followed. Women curated options. Men competed. Now men are creating their own scarcity, scarcity of commitment, scarcity of effort, scarcity of validation. That scarcity is devastating because it forces women to compete in ways they've never had to before. Some adapt beautifully, developing personality, kindness, relationship skills, and emotional maturity. Others, they explode. They blame men, society, the patriarchy, anything but themselves. They cry that men are insecure for having preferences or weak for withdrawing from unfair expectations. But the truth is simple. This isn't men revolting. It's men recalibrating. Part 6 reveals the real reason for the explosions. When the validation economy collapsed, so did the false sense of superiority that came with it. Men didn't destroy that system. Women did, by assuming male attention was guaranteed forever. And now they're discovering the cost of taking it for granted. Part 7. When accountability replaces excuses. By the time we reach this stage, the pattern becomes impossible to deny. Every explosion, every meltdown, every furious rant traces back to one terrifying realization for certain women: they can no longer escape accountability. For years, modern culture offered convenient escape hatches from self-reflection. Did a relationship fail? He was intimidated. Got rejected? He's gay. Got ghosted? He's a coward. He didn't commit? He was afraid of a strong woman. He doesn't want a single mom? He's immature. He wants a feminine partner? He's misogynistic. Every personal flaw could be outsourced to men, patriarchy, society, anything but themselves. But when men stopped engaging with these narratives altogether, the excuses stopped working. Modern women expected the man to fold under guilt, expected him to come back after a tantrum, expected shame to force him into compliance, expected tears to be a reset button, expected manipulation to pull him back into orbit. But men simply stopped responding. No arguments, no debates, no apologies, just a quiet withdrawal that screams louder than any confrontation. And suddenly, for the first time, some women are trapped alone with the truth. You can't improve if you can't admit you're the problem. That's where accountability begins. And that's where most explosions originate. Because what used to be dismissed as men being dramatic is now being recognized as legitimate standards. Men want loyalty. Men want respect. Men want emotional stability. Men want peace in their lives. Men want partners, not adversaries. And instead of shaming men for these expectations, society is starting to agree with them. This shift puts enormous pressure on the women who relied on the old system of excuses. Suddenly, their behaviors have consequences. Acting entitled no longer gets rewarded. Playing games no longer secures commitment. Using sex as leverage no longer works. Rejecting good men no longer guarantees better options later. Mocking male vulnerability no longer keeps a man dependent. Now, every action has a price, and the women unwilling to pay it crumble under the weight of responsibility. One of the biggest triggers is this: men walked away from dysfunction, not from women, just from chaos. And the moment men refused to tolerate destructive behavior, the mirror of accountability turned around. A woman who never had to self-reflect now has no choice. A woman who expected endless male effort is now expected to contribute. A woman who thought being attractive was enough is now expected to bring value. A woman who blamed all her problems on men is now alone with the truth. Accountability is not an attack, it's growth. But for those who've avoided it their entire lives, it feels like betrayal. Part 7 shows the deepest root of modern dating explosions. Men's refusal to play the old game removed the safety net that allowed certain women to avoid responsibility. Now the question is simple: will they evolve, or will they keep exploding in a world that no longer bends to their excuses? Conclusion: the new era has begun. We've reached the final stage of the shift, a place where every pattern, every explosion, every emotional breakdown finally makes sense. The modern dating dynamic isn't collapsing because men became bitter. It's collapsing because men finally learned they have the right to choose. For generations, men were expected to pursue, provide, protect, and tolerate anything thrown at them. Women were taught, subtly or loudly, that their value was guaranteed, their desirability permanent, and their options endless. Some adapted responsibly, but many coasted on entitlement, convinced the game would never change. But it did. Slowly, quietly, then all at once. Men leveled up. Men gained self-respect. Men built boundaries. Men walked away from chaos, manipulation, and bad deals. And when men changed, the entire dating marketplace shifted underneath everyone's feet. Suddenly, the women who had relied on automatic male attention found themselves in unfamiliar territory, a world where effort matters, accountability matters, and character matters just as much as beauty. Some women rose to the challenge. They improved, reflected, and evolved. These women are thriving in the new dating economy. But others crumbled. They assumed their value was permanent. They assumed men would forever tolerate double standards. They assumed rejection was a male-only experience. And when reality corrected those assumptions, the reaction was explosive. The truth at the core of all this is powerful and simple. For the first time in modern history, average men are choosing peace over chaos, standards over desperation, and self-respect over validation. And here's the bold statement that defines this entire new era: men didn't disappear. They didn't become weaker. They simply stopped settling. That one shift changed everything, and the dating landscape will never go back to what it was.